It is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on Werewolf the Apocalypse, in the world of darkness. So today, we are continuing our discussion on spirits by talking about the other two members of the triad, the Weaver and the Wyrm. So let us start with the Weaver. So, the chaos of reality and creation is what the wild truly is. But unbridled chaos does not exist without a temperance to it, without a control to it in a way. And that is where the Weaver comes into existence. The Weaver saw this chaos, and the Weaver went in and created unchanging within this chaos, created stability within this chaos, kept sections of this ever-changing, growing, amalgaming chaos from changing, created unchanging portions of it that began the pattern of the universe itself. These were the first strands in what became known as the pattern web, the web that in a way both ensnares and binds the universe as it is. It shaped everything with form, growth, and progress. And this isn't to say that this is perfection, because the influence of the Wyrm has come in to prevent a true, perfect, unchanging pattern from existence. But this imperfection, this flaws, is not such a bad thing. In amongst this flaws, we find balance. A true cosmology of chaos, creation, and destruction. And that was the triad. That was the triad for a great amount of time. Until the Weaver gained consciousness. Realized it was a being. This is something that all Garou agree on. The Weaver was the first to gain consciousness. Now Garou disagree on what exactly happened next. But once the Weaver gained consciousness, one concept of it is perhaps it sought to remove the chaos, to keep things ever the same, and it did this by attempting to bind the wild within its pattern web. Of course, it sought to use the Wyrm to do this. It sought to use the Wyrm, and binding the Wyrm in its pattern web, which it managed to do first, brought it both madness and its own consciousness. And of course, this attempts to both bind the others of the triad drove the Weaver into madness. And so it did manage to ensnare all the others of the triad within its pattern web. And its attempts to hold them is not complete, though. The wild still does what it can. It still leaks out its creation. It is still, though exhausted from this constant bombardment, still tries to balance out creation. The wild is still there. Another theory is that the Weaver went after the Wyrm first, and it was the conflict between them that it gained its intelligence and decided that destruction should be removed, and that is a way for its creations to remain forever. It still has to eventually probably deal with the constant amounts of creation and too much, but its loss of its creations, making them true perfect once they are finally rigid, was its goal. And so it attempted to bind the Wyrm within its pattern web. Of course, this binding drove the Wyrm insane, but it was unable to truly control the Wyrm within its web. The Wyrm was something of destruction, of entropy, and it could not completely master it. And its attempts to do that drove the Weaver mad, as destruction leaked out of there. And it is that constant battle between the cosmology that creates the damage to Gaia. That is these three forces, when they are not in balance, in harmony, in disagreement, that cause the fractures to Gaia regardless. Now, other theories say that it was the Wyrm that first initiated this rather than the Weaver. The Weaver was still the first to gain sentience, but the Wyrm determined to destroy the wild, destroy all of creation, and stop more from being created. To do this, it sought to use the Weaver to its advantage, to use the Weaver to ensnare the wild in its web. But its attempts to use the Weaver caused it to want to defend itself. It caused its own destruction to be seen. And it backfired, ensnaring the Wyrm in its own webs, and causing the two of them, of course, to once again go mad. That is, the attempts of the Wyrm to go after the Weaver, to use it against the wild, that drives it towards its madness, and it's the defense of the Weaver which binds the Wyrm more and more and drive it towards its madness, that the two of them are trapped in this struggle against each other, driving them deeper into madness. But regardless of which of these is the true cosmology, the true reason behind the fracture of the triad, it is still agreed. The Weaver was the first to be intelligent, to be conscious, and it is the Weaver that seeks to bind all of the Tellurium within its pattern web in a perfect, unchanging world. That everything is a perfect, unchanging, rigid universe. Now let us talk about the Wyrm. The Wyrm was the triad that was made to create balance. Balance between the order of the Weaver and the chaos of the wild. That the two of them would be creating a combination between them. The true raw chaos. The true powers of order to that chaos. The creation and destruction balancing both out. The Wyrm was not always sentient, just as all the three of them began as beings of what they were, of not true sentience, but becoming trapped in the pattern web of the Weaver, regardless of how it became trapped, of any of those stories, was what led the Wyrm to its true madness that it endures now. The Wyrm's mind has fractured into three personalities which oftentimes disagree with each other, oftentimes have conflict with each other, but have one goal in mind overall. They are the harbingers of the apocalypse, and will see all of creation destroyed, all of creation undone. They use corruption and decay to do this. They cannot directly destroy, so they go inside to find destructions, undermining it from within. This means they seek those of a mindset of destruction, of decay, and weed their way into their minds, corrupt their minds, and create servants of the Wyrm, servants of destruction and decay. All intelligent creatures can hear the call of the Wyrm, hear its whispers of madness, of decay and destruction. But only those of weak will surrender themselves to the Wyrm, become true servants in its quest to destroy all, both spiritual and physical, and reduce everything to nothing. Now the Wyrm has won victories in its battle. There are entire realms within the spiritual side that have been conquered by the Wyrm. Garu that visit these places, those realms conquered by the Wyrm, find places that are desolate, devoid of any connection to Gaia anymore. The creatures that live there are slaves at worst, servants at best, to the powerful Banes that live there, and the Incarna above them. A dark, twisted place of corruption that intend to spread from this realm out to all the others. Every realm, until every realm is like this, and then every realm is no more, and creation is destroyed. That is the essence of what the Wyrm is. It's madness. But that's it for today. So I talked to you about the two other members of the triad. The Weaver, creation from chaos, and the Wyrm, destruction. Three forces, once balanced, now fractured, creating a tension which will lead to the end of Gaia. What the true story of this tension is, who knows? But there is danger in both the Weaver and the Wyrm. Both of them have their eyes on creation, their plans for it. but their madness prevents them from getting it perfectly. And many of them have indirect ways of weaving perfect patterns of rigidity, or weaving ultimate destruction. Regardless, they are two forces that oftentimes Garou will have to deal with. Forces of both order to an extreme beyond their knowledge, and destruction, corruption, decay, entropy. In the next episode, we will move on from the triad to the next level of spirits, the Celestines, and begin talking about those that are below them even, as we continue to move through the powerful spirits into the less powerful. But I hope you're having a great day. If you have any interesting stories about encounters you've had with either Wyrm or Weaver type creatures within a werewolf game that you had that you'd wish to share with me, I'd love to hear them. I love to hear your role-playing stories in the comments below. But regardless though, until the next time, I bid you farewell.